All right, Shalom. First off, I want to start off with saying all praises, honor, and glory is due to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, by Hashem Kakadash. It's all praises to the world-class God, whose true name in the Hebrew is Yahweh, by Hashem meaning in the name of Yahushai, being the name of the only begotten Son. I also want to say double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and mercy to the hopeful late preaching this word and truth and sincerity on the brother Tazabah in the Great Millstone, Arizona camp. Lord will with another video to edify. And I'm gonna play this. I didn't want to, but just so we start getting into it. And this is like the elders and apostles that have been going into lessons, why it's important to go into words. This is why, because these men are just preaching the doctrine of do your own lust, right? The Lord is with you, right? You're not supposed to have sex on the Sabbath. You're not. And we're going to go into the words, go into an account of, like other brothers have been doing, and you have to be clean on the Sabbath to actually keep the Sabbath, man. Remember, you go into the scriptures, the priests couldn't even go into the temple of the Lord unless they washed. They had to be clean. They had to be undefiled, right? They had to sanctify them unto the day of the Lord. So what does that sanctification come with? Being clean. Being set apart, right? It's a literal setting apart of yourself, ready for that service, right? So I'm gonna play this, and Lord willing, be edifying.
Right. So this was no particular day. This is not said. This is lawful on saying you can eat grapes, food according to your pleasure. Right. So this was no particular day. This is not said. This is lawful on. Comest into thy neighbor's vineyard. Read on.
Then thou mayest eat grapes.
Then you may eat grapes. Go ahead.
Thy field at thine own pleasure.
See that? So now, in this context, it's saying you can eat grapes, food according to your pleasure. Right? So this was no particular day. This is not said this is lawful on Sunday through Friday, and you can't do this on the Sabbath. It says, regardless, when you come into your neighbor's vineyard, if you're hungry, you want some grapes, you can eat. At your own what?
At thine own pleasure.
At your own pleasure. Okay? Read 24 again.
Verse 24.
You see, this is deceptive, right? Because for the average Israelite that doesn't go into words, this will sound like he's telling the truth. Now, what he's trying to combat is Isaiah the 58th chapter. But I want to go into both scriptures to get an understanding. So right now, he's going into Deuteronomy, right, 23 and 24. And we'll get that, right? You go into Deuteronomy 23 and 24. It says, when thou goest into a neighbor's vineyard, then thou mayest eat the grapes. Eat grapes. Then thou mayest eat grapes, thy fill at thine own pleasure, right? When you go into that word pleasure, it is napash. Where is it at? Right here it is. The word pleasure there is napash. Na-pa, right? Na-pa. Shah, Napash. And that word means soul, self, life, capture, person, appetite, mind, right? According to your appetite, not according to what you want to do. Seat of the appetites, right? Seat of emotions and passion, activity of mind, activity of will, activity of the character. Right, so it's not even going into what he's saying. Right, it's an entirely different word that is spoken of in Isaiah 58, and this is keeping the Sabbath. Look what it says: keeping the Sabbath. If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy Yahweh. The holy of Yahweh, honorable, shall honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thy own pleasures, nor speaking thy own words. Now, when you go into this word for pleasure, it's a completely different word, right? Now, you go here, let me see that, right? It's a ka. It's kapataza, right? And I'll show you. Let's line these two up, right? These three characters, right? The first one is ka, right there, right? Second character is pa, right here, right? And the third character is taza, or kapataz. Yeah, kapataza. And it's right here, right? So it's not even the same word, and they're sitting there trying to connect these things. Now it says delight, pleasure, delight, desire, longing, the good pleasure, that in which one takes delight. So is sex a thing of pleasure? Is these two different things that he was going into? They are, but for him, right? Because you don't want to go into words, and IUIC tries to talk stuff about us for going into words. Now you confuse the congregation. Now you teaching things where you're not ought to teach. Because the Lord said himself, if any man, let me get this. Yeah, this is least kingdom. It says where is it? Whosoever. Yeah, here it is. Matthew 5:19. It says, whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men also, and shall teach men so, he shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Right? So just by simple word choice, you see that these men are actually teaching against the word. And why? It's because of carnal lust. It's because of a straight out carnal lust, and you can't get around it. Now, when you go into the book of Leviticus, right, because going in and having to see the compilation, nah. And two, Salaki, I didn't have any presets. Right? When you go into the law, this is give me a second. Here it is. Let me get this real quick. This is Leviticus. And brothers have been getting this scripture. Right? Leviticus 15 and 8. 15 and 18, so like it. Leviticus 15 and 18. The woman also with whom man shall lie with seed of compilation, right? Right, here it is. Compulation. I was spelling it wrong. It says, verse 16, if a man's seed of compilation go out of him, right? Basically talking about ejaculation or nothing, right? Go out of him. Then shall he wash his flesh. Then he shall wash all his flesh in water and be unclean until evening. Now, if you're unclean, you're not able to keep the office of a priest. You can't even bring a gift to the altar, right? Because when you go back into Leviticus, the 22nd chapter, starting off the fourth verse, it says, what man soever of the seed of Aaron is a leper or hath a running issue, he shall not eat of the holy things until he be clean. It says, whosoever toucheth anything that is unclean by the dead, or a man whose seed goeth out from him, or whosoever toucheth any creeping thing whereby he may be made unclean, or a man whom he may take uncleanness, or a man of whom he may take uncleanness, whatsoever uncleanness he had, the soul which toucheth any such shall be unclean until even, and he shall not eat of the holy things unless he wash his flesh with water, right? So you can't sit here and hold the office. You can't even take part of the sacrifice on the holy days. If you go even further, Aaron and his sons had to wash their feet in water before they went into the temple. Feet and hands and water before they went into the temple. They had to be clean. You couldn't just go to the Lord and be unclean or defiled. This is why David said himself, women 3 days. 1 Samuel 21 and 3. Now therefore, what is under thine hand, give me 5 loaves of the bread in my hand, or what there is present. It says, and the priest answered David and said, there is no common bread under my hand, but there is hallowed bread. If the young man had kept themselves at least from women, right? Because you can't eat of the holy things being defiled, right? You can't even go into the holies of holies being defiled. It says, and David answered, the priest said unto him, of a truth, women have been kept from us about these 3 days since I came out, and the vessels of the young men are holy, right? Meaning separate. They haven't been defiled. They didn't do their own thing, right? And the bread is in a manner common, yet though it were sanctified this day in the vessel. See? So you can't even take part of the holy things. What makes you think on the holy day when you have to go to the temple? Because that was what was commanded. Everybody would go up every Sabbath and get the word, keep the Sabbath. That was the process. But you're saying you can have sex with your woman on the Sabbath? It makes no sense, right? It's because you men are being very sensual. This is Jude 1 and 19. I'll start at 18. It says, how that they told you therefore how that they told you there should be mockers in the last time, who shall walk after their own ungodly lust. Right? This was told to us long ago. It says, these be they who separate themselves sensual, having not the spirit. Right? When you go into that word sensual, let's get that, man. It's Jude 1 and 18. I think it's the 19th verse. Yeah, 19. That word for sensual.
Strong's G 5591. Psuchikas. Psuchikas.
Psuchikas. All right. Of or being to breathe, having the nature or characteristics of the breath, the principle of animal life, which men have in common with the brutes, governed by breath, the sensuous nature, which is subjection to appetite and passion. And we're not supposed to be subject to appetite and passion. We're supposed to be what? having our minds and wits about us, right? Putting our flesh in subjection, not to be in subjection to our flesh, right? There's a quote I was looking up today, and let me see if I can. Let me see if I can put. All right, here it is, right here. It says anger is a brief madness. Govern your mind, temper, or unless it obeys, it commands. For unless it obeys, it commands. You can't be a person who is governed by your passions, because whether or not your passions are gonna obey you or they're gonna command you, you can't be sensual, right? It shouldn't even be an argument to have sex on the Sabbath. Like, dang, you got all week to bust whatever loads you want. But then the Sabbath is a key day where you're telling everybody, oh, yeah, do this on the Sabbath. Come on, bro. The scriptures say plainly, you're supposed to not do your own pleasure. And you're going to take in eating, which is lawful to do on the Sabbath, because you eat on the Sabbath regardless. Right? But back in Jude 1:19, these be they who separate themselves sensual, having not the Spirit, but ye, beloved, building up yourselves on your most holy faith, praying in the Holy Spirit. Right? You can't be sensual in this thing, and that's what it is. Because when you want to be sensual, when you want to be given over to your passions, when you want to make an excuse to what you want to do, right? Right. Then you go into this a lot. This is Romans 8:6. It says, "For the carnal mind is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace." Because the carnal mind, right? It's a carnal lust that you worried about, is enmity against the Most High. Basically, it's a hatred. It's an enemy. For it is not subject to the law of the Most High, neither indeed can be. And that's what's happening. They talk about the law, but here it is, you're preaching something that's against it. You didn't even bother to go into the words to actually be confident in this thing. You just came up to your own conclusion, mixed and mingled scriptures, and says, see, you can. No, you can't. Right? The carnal mind is enmity and cannot be subject to the law of the Most High. And this is why they preach things against it. Right? So Lord willing to edify them and say, call law Yahweh Shemel Shai B'Shem Karkadash Shalom.